Good evening, everyone. I'm Matthew Taylor, Chief Executive of the RSA. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here this evening. Before we begin, just a quick reminder that we're filming tonight's event, so could you switch your phones to silent? We're also live streaming over the RSA website, so welcome to our online viewers. And if you want to get involved in the discussion using your silent mobile device on Twitter, you can use the hashtag RSA Architect. Now, housekeeping notice is over. I'm pleased to introduce this evening's special event, which is part of the RSA Blossom series focusing on architecture and society. The lecture series was endowed in 1954 by architect and politician Lord Alfred Blossom, and I'd like to welcome members of the Blossom family attending this evening and offer kind thanks on behalf of the RSA for their continued support for these events. We do hope you can stay on for a drinks reception after the lecture, kindly supported by the Blossom family. Now, I'm delighted to welcome this evening's guest speaker, Sarah Wigglesworth. Sarah heads her own architectural practice in London and is an esteemed member of the RSA's faculty of Royal Designers for Industry. With a belief that good design in all its aspects can improve life, her practice works in close collaboration with clients and stakeholder groups to explore sustainable futures. Sarah is also Professor of Architecture at the University of Sheffield, where she's a pioneer of practice-based research. Sarah is currently leading a research project designing exemplary environments for older people. In her lecture this evening, Sarah will talk about the broader forces that shape our cities and argue for an architecture in which people will have greater control of the built environment around them. I'll be joining Sarah for the discussion after her presentation, and we're looking forward then to hearing your questions. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sarah Wigglesworth.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak tonight to both the RSA and the Blossom family who have sponsored this lecture. Okay. Architects spend a lot of time feeling undervalued, pondering why we work the longest hours of any profession, and yet our wages are falling relative to others. And people don't trust us. We endlessly self-reflect on our irrelevance and impotence in the world of construction. I know because I do it too. Basically, we scapegoat our internal culture, our clients, project managers, our professional body, architectural education, anything we can, in vain hope that an adjustment within architecture itself can make things better. I believe this will not achieve anything. There seems to be little doubt that architecture needs to find a new valorization for itself within society, but I'm going to argue that its relevance will come from architects looking outwards and making a new contract with society. To do this, we need to find a new confidence and a new role, answering to genuine need in the interests of civic society and in the process becoming re-politicized in the sense of working for people. At the same time, and in the face of increasing levels of regulation and the pull towards technocratic problem solving, it is essential to remember the poetry of architecture that can make the settings of our daily lives evocative and pleasurable. Actually, I don't see these two things as incompatible. Everyone deserves a good environment to live in, just as we expect good health and clean drinking water. What is more, with the prevailing desire for economy and better value, this is the moment to be seeking resilient propositions that will be cherished into the future. In his 1923 book, Towards a New Architecture, Le Corbusier made a link between architecture and society, warning that if we did not sort out the problems of the traditional city, we would have a revolution on our hands. Corb's ideas were both technocratic and, in my opinion, elitist, making unfounded claims for the power of the built environment, and naively adopted by authorities in the shake-up after the Second World War. Top-down approaches fail to understand the complex emotional, social, cultural, historical, technical, administrative, managerial and economic imperatives that make cities work. In the current era and in the wake of these failures, I would like to think that we understand the connections between society and architecture in a more subtle way. And while architects cannot be held wholly responsible for the problems that result from our work, we certainly cannot claim to be unimplicated. But if we don't have anything to say about these things, then we will have little of anything important to say. So notwithstanding a perception that architecture's sole purpose is design and that design is marginal to the key decisions in building, which are to say land values, land availability, lending, finance and so forth, this has fueled architects' inability to influence the solutions that are on offer. But interestingly, what design does and can do is absolutely crucial. Good design helps life run more efficiently, and it understands functionality. So think of things like tube maps, trains running on time, IT systems working properly, BT line that doesn't get crossed. All these things are designed. Moreover, many aspects of design are highly rigorous, logical, and involve many, many hours of patient work. So I'm not talking about the kind of crazy person who just comes up impetuously with design ideas. If we get it wrong, the stakes can be really high. And at its best, design can promote well-being, happiness, and delight, all of which make people feel better, learn more effectively, be more productive at work, feel in control, and stay balanced and healthy. It reflects back at us the way we think about ourselves and what we value. There is, though, a much more powerful process behind design, and that one is, and it's frequently thwarted in the desire in building to limit risk, control processes, and guarantee outcomes. Design works across boundaries, synthesizing information from a wide range of sources, analyzing it, prioritizing it, and bringing it together to propose an original insights that comments on and adds another layer to history, identity, ecology of place. It posits a fresh insight and a different way of seeing. In doing this, it creates new narratives around its context, establishing relationships and revelations that convey deep meanings and resonances. By its nature, it aims to be scavenging, disrespecting convention, in other words, disobedient. While these aspects are anecdotally well understood by architects, it is a challenge to produce quantitative evidence of what that good design pays, as if there were a direct line between cause and effect. For architecture is the sole art form in which the artist actually relinquishes control to others. Its greatest gift is to behave neither as a tool nor a mechanism, nor as a look-don't-touch object of reverence, but to invite creative responses, allowing people to explore its potential and to find empowerment by doing so. It should invite creative occupation. By making users the co-creators of work of architecture, we hand back power to its occupants, giving environments life, meaning, and relevance both in the here and now and in the future. Architects cannot predict what will happen, but the architecture must be loose enough to permit such creative action while anticipating clearly where the dangers may occur. Ultimately, good architecture is about people. It is about the relationships established in bringing it about and the ones that arise once it is constructed. Architecture needs to strive to strike a balance between being quietly provocative backdrop to everyday life, while also being resonant and relevant to the people that use it, dignifying their existence and respecting their values. We can only provide this by involving people in the dialogue, through participation in briefing, design, planning, and feedback associated with each project. Common, generic appointment and procurement procedures often work against this. So architects must step forward into the public stage to state how this process can happen. It means influencing all the other bits of the process by which buildings come about, enabling clients to work out what they want from the project, to develop briefs that balance communities' and landowners' interests, to influence procurement processes to better reflect the goals of the project, to engage the planning system in a narrative about quality and the idiosyncrasies of place, and to find the things people didn't know they wanted or needed in this new environment. This project illustrates some strategies we've used to try and overcome some of these barriers. In this example, for the design of a primary school, the local authority commissioned and paid for the building, but the school was heavily influenced the design. The procurement was run as a contractor-led design competition, which is to say, we're employed by the contractor to work for the local authority with the school. In the 8-week competition period, we were given 2 one-hour slots to engage with the school. That's all. We had to find engagement strategies that would tease out the brief and help us to find an effective design proposition. But as time was critical, we needed a swift and effective solution. Our proposition was a board game, which we invited the client and the user to play with, consisting of a site plan and some props, as well as counters representing the rooms involved. We asked the group to configure their favourite arrangement of spaces, both interior and exterior, to help us understand what their priorities were in the design process. This helped us quickly to understand key hierarchies, adjacencies and relationships, and how the school's teaching ethos is reflected in the planning of the school. It allowed us to organise the plan in an effective way that made the school unique and tailored to their precise needs. We also worked with the children. We made a model so they could explore the school and comment on the layout of the buildings. We talked to them about their daily rituals, where they go, at what time, what sorts of things they do, and where they'd like to learn when they do them. In this manner, we were able to develop the idea of a classroom cluster organised around an outdoor learning environment like this one, themed as a water garden. We also used this event as an opportunity to discuss their interest and capability in making their school a green building. We make use of simple, unthreatening imagery to engage people in the debate because frequently they can't understand architectural drawings, and it's really important to engage in a dialogue with them. So the hierarchy of the school that emerged was one where the library lay at the heart, at the hub of the circulation routes around the campus, and the classrooms were organised around these courtyards, all of them themed with different landscapes. In this library hub, pupils and teachers do their prep side by side so they can see cause and effect happening. As the children grow, they can see their teachers doing the same kinds of things. We designed a small mezzanine gallery with a very low ceiling above it so that kids could go up there, lie on a rug, and read a book that they'd chosen from the library below. That led to a deck which looks back over one of the courtyards that is at the entrance to the school. Well, a lot of money can be at stake when buildings go wrong, so it's quite surprising that we don't find much more commitment to discovering whether a piece of architecture actually fulfills its intentions. Typically, those that pay the capital cost and appoint the consultants are not the people that occupy and manage the building on its completion. And while we're desperately short of tangible evidence supporting how to get it right, the work that has been done, such as that carried out by CABE, is often ignored or worse, dismissed as hangovers from the boom era that do not fit the current ideology. This is compounded by an understandable reluctance to declare the problems that ensue from mistakes that are made, wherever they may lie. We need an honest sharing of detailed information that recognises the many contributory components supporting a building's success so that we can feed this back into future projects. But good design can achieve an architecture which is grounded in a meaningful dialogue based on people's lives, and that responds to the real conditions and the contingent problems we face as society. By raising issues consciously and systematically and exploring their implications, design can add to the body of knowledge of successful situations and that go on to form in future practice. I believe that research can help us achieve this, but it does require a huge commitment from practitioners, from academia, from funding bodies, and from those financing and commissioning buildings. However, as the impact of rigorous research becomes an increasingly important metric, particularly in academia, so studies should be a cornerstone of what is produced inside it and through collaboration with industry. The prevailing separation of these two spheres, that's to say academia and practice, certainly is one of the barriers to making this work. Having made the case for more research into the built environment, I'm trying to fulfil this commitment by leading a research project at the University of Sheffield under the banner Design for Wellbeing, Ageing and Mobility in the Built Environment. This project uses design research based on engagement with older people themselves to develop exemplary prototypes for dwellings and neighbourhoods in Sheffield suited to the needs of our growing older population. Our project's called Dwell, Designing for Wellbeing in Environments for Later Life, and it builds on existing knowledge to develop an actual design proposal. While undoubtedly a growing sector in housing, older people's housing options are focused on choice for those that have money to buy a retirement lifestyle. But for those that have limited choice, they need to make do with potentially unsuitable options that are selected because the alternatives are actually very much worse. Our aim has been to consider interconnected issues that need to cohere to work properly for older people. This is why our research extends into neighbourhoods, looking at access to shops, services and a cultural life that addresses the needs of older people who, like all of us, have a range of interests, needs and desires. A key plank in our process is a partnership with Sheffield City Council, who are keen to learn how to deliver more services more economically and more efficiently, all the things that design can assist in facilitating. Older people's motivations for moving are very complex and diverse, involving push and pull factors. In a recent visit to an assisted living housing scheme, we found many poor design features. Residents told us that pressurised selling by the developer, not being able to view the property and the stress of the move into the unknown all contributed to a climate of panic and poor decision-making. But these apartments were provided by a very successful national developer of purpose-designed homes for older people that has an 80% share in the market in the UK. They really should have done a better job. For those that have little money and rely on the state to take care of them, options are limited and linked to the care budget provided by local authorities. So the question remains, what are appropriate models? Should we aim to keep older people in their homes and communities struggling to cope, making adaptations to existing stock, while more general needs housing is built that answers to lifetime needs? Or should we build specialist housing that provides on-site the help that will almost certainly be required at some point? We will be testing these solutions with older people recruited especially for the project. We are at a unique moment in time wherein the generation coming up to retirement will have salary-related pensions and own properties whose capital can be realised in making provision for retirement. But this moment will not last long as pressure bears on their capital assets. We need resilient solutions that help promote older people's independence, mobility, confidence, well-being, feeling purposeful